Hi everyone, this is Elena of the Witches Box, and I'm here today with another episode of Witch Booktube. And this book we've been talking about, sort of circling for a hot minute. It's Entering Hecate's Garden by Cyndi Brannen, PhD. I gave this book away along with a bundle of other books for our June solstice book giveaway that was like a couple weeks ago, which I'm so excited that whoever you are, you got it, you won. I'm so excited for you. Enjoy the book. But I also talked about this briefly. I think that it was on Instagram. So this book was published a little while ago. It was in 2020. And I was super privileged to have gotten an advanced manuscript copy of it so that I can provide a blurb for the book, which I did. I'm so excited to do this. And I was so honored that she asked me to. So when you open the book, I offered my glowing review of this book. It's such a good book. So I'm giving it away from the beginning. You also know that we love Cyndi Brannen around here. I love Cyndi Brannen. Last night, because this was one of the June reading books for our book subscription, we had our live Witch Book Coven last night, and Cyndi was gracious enough to join us and talk about the book and talk about things witchery and talk about botanicals and then lead us through a beautiful guided meditation ritual that was gorgeous. And it was just a fun time. I mean, we went a little over, it was 2 hours and some odd minutes just because we just kept talking. And it's one of the things that I love the most about the Witches book subscription because, yes, of course, always, I want to be reading books. I love mailing books. I love that we're all reading the same books together month after month after month. However, it's the gathering at the end of the month when we have the authors come and we can just not only talk to them about their background process in writing the book, their own witchery, but also just the writing process. That's like my selfish desire to just talk to writers about their writing process, even though not necessarily all of the subscribers want to hear about that, but I gotta get my questions in when I can, right? So last night, Cyndi Brannen was there. We talked about this book. Last month, we spent that month reading this particular book along with another beautiful book. And I wanted to talk about this because there's so much to say about this book. So let me read to you Cyndi's bio, and then we're gonna go from there. Cyndi Brannen, PhD, is a spiritual teacher, trained energetic healer, psychic, and herbalist. Merging her training in shamanism, tarot, past life work, meditation, and psychology, she teaches and writes about better living through witchcraft. And you can find her at keepingherkeys.com. Because if you are familiar with Cyndi Brannen and you're familiar with me and this channel, we've reviewed, I think, 2 other books that she's written already here. The first one being Keeping Her Keys. And I gave glowing reviews. At some point, we'll link it somewhere here. She wrote a gorgeous, I believe it's a 13-month, it may be 12, but I think it's a 13-month ritual practice for engaging with and getting to know and strengthening your work around Hekate and with Hekate. And it's a beautiful book that I highly recommend to all of you who are very interested in deity work but haven't quite found your way, or who are called by Hekate. It's a beautiful book to read. I don't now know if this is true or not. And Cyndi, if you're out there, let me know if this is true. I keep calling it a tradition. Like, she has pulled through and created a tradition. And this book is very much the continuation of what I thought that she started in that first book. Last night, she mentioned that she didn't set out to create a tradition. It wasn't so much that as much as it was she wanted to share what most felt like home practice, her home, right? Her home spirituality, her home witchcraft with others. It is such a beautiful book, that one. And then this one came along. And I feel like this was a deeper dive into what was started in the first book. And the first book itself was a pretty deep dive into working with and walking a Hecatean path. Let me just read to you the table of contents for this book so that you know what you're getting into. The subtitle to this book is The Magic, Medicine, and Mystery of Plant Spirit Witchcraft. You can see it there. I know I held it up already. Let me read to you from the table of contents, which is fairly simple, but I want to give you an idea of how the book is broken down, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what the book is. So, chapter 1 is Prologue, Medea's Truth. 2 is Nisa, The Call. 3 is Origio or Origio, The Source. 4 is Preparatio. Please excuse my pronunciation, and that's the foundation. 5 is Ratio, The System. 6 is Practica, the process. 7 is Hero's Pyre, which is the fire. 8 is Gnosis, the knowledge. 9 is Magicaea, the spell. 10 is Sibylica, which is the prophecy. 11 is Agia, the sacred. 12 is Sophia, the wisdom. And 13 is Initio, the mystery. There are acknowledgements and sources for further reading in the back. This book is a blending of, yes, herbal pharmakeia, herbal information in terms of correspondences and different ways to use herbs, but it's layered over ritual in a really beautiful way that mixes both that ancient wisdom that we've been passing down from generation to generation to generation, beautifully woven with Cyndi's own practice and rituals, incorporating botanicals into those rituals. It's a rich, deep dive. And last night, someone asked, were there herbs that you had to leave out of the book? And she spoke about the fact that part of the choices that were made were not just about the herbs that she uses or the botanicals that she uses personally in her personal work regularly, but that there are herbs out there like chamomile, like perhaps cinnamon, or mint, or there are quite a few herbs out there that we have talked about and written about ad nauseum forever and ever and ever. Amen. And so she didn't want to write more on something that was already out there. She wanted to expound on things that weren't maybe necessarily written about as much. I think St. John's wort was one of the ones that she left out for this reason. We have a lot written about these things that we don't necessarily need someone else to add more to. So she chose herbs where she felt she can add more to the conversation, and I really appreciate that. So let me really quickly read to you some of the herbs that are in here that we talk about. In the book, she talks about properties and correspondences, of course, because we always cover that. Layering correspondences on top of each other, which I think is the key. It's the juice. It's what we talk about a lot in the Witches Box when we do our deep dives, is that there is always a gorgeous, magical way of weaving layers of correspondences together to create very specific energetic signatures, both in what you want to learn from and what you want to call in and manifest, and in how you want to banish or cut off, right? So the layering of different items, natural items that create specific correspondence keys or signatures is beautiful, and she speaks to that. And I think it's one of the things that makes magic so beautiful, that yeah, you can use a single simple ingredient. It could be a crystal, it can be a leaf, like a bay leaf, or it can be a sigil, right? Where you're tapping into a singular thing. But when you begin to kind of layer and weave together something, you have a much more multidimensional reach. And she speaks to layering correspondences here in that way, and I really love that. Talks about making substitutions, working with wild plant spirits, botanical formulations, and using botanicals in their natural state. These are just examples of the things that are covered. And it's covered through the lens of exploring Hecate's daughters, Medea and Circe, in a really beautiful way that weaves a world to travel in and to journey through that really allows for a much more rounded wisdom in terms of the personalities and the full breadth of an energetic stream that a botanical holds. A botanical isn't just the 5 things that we listed on the correspondence sheet. Yes, I send those to you, but that's just like the very beginning. It's a very slight outline. A botanical is a full being, and there's so much there to explore. And very rarely in the books that we get do we have an opportunity to really dive into botanicals in that way. This book touches on that, which I thought was beautiful because it really lends itself to giving you a much fuller idea, a much fuller experience when you work with botanicals and when you work with Hekate and when you work with deity in this way. I can't say enough praises about Cyndi, and I can't say enough praises about this book. When I read it, every couple of pages, I was like, fucking A, man, look what she's doing. This is so amazing. Because not only did we get Keeping Her Keys, which I thought was a gorgeous journey that, if I'm not mistaken, it is a 13-month course, because it's been a while since I read that book, where at the end of that 13-month of working, each month has a very specific focus and different things to work on, and you build upon the last month over and over again. There's an initiation then at the end of those 13 months that you can give to yourself. She also has various different covens and classes in school and a mentorship program, I believe, on her website so that you can take that deeper. But I feel like this book fleshed all that out even more. Like once you do that, then what? You can keep doing that over and over and over again. And I think for your lifetime, you can get an entire lifetime of practice and richness from that practice. But then you have this that adds so much to it. So listen, get it. Especially if you are a devotee of Hekate, this is a must for your library. If you are a botanical lover, an herbalist, another must for your library, only because this gives you so much more layering or perspective on what can be done in that relationship, with that relationship, and what to explore. I'm going to give you really quickly some of the herbs that are covered here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are some. There's agrimony, there's mandrake, madrigona, there is aster, basil, laurel or bay leaves. That's just a small benzoin, small smattering. There are so many more. Birch, black hohosh, There's Foxglove, there's Damiana, there's Dandelion. So there's quite a few. I don't know exactly the number of how many, but there are quite a few here. So there it is, Entering Hecate's Garden by Cyndi Brannen. I totally recommend it. Get it. For those of you who are lovers of Hekate, this is a must for your library. And if you don't have her Keeping Her Keys book, get that too. That is an amazing, amazing book. I think both of them do really well together. So boom, there you go. Thank you, Cyndi, for making this book for us. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and give this video a thumbs up. As well as, if you've read this book, I know that there are a lot of you out there who are working with Cyndi. I'd love for you to share your experiences with that journey down below in the comment section, because I'm wanting to hear how that's going and what your thoughts were on the book. And other than that, I will see you all in the social medias, and I will see you again next week here on this channel for another Booktube review. Bye.